It's Friday, 11 a.m. in the Pacific, the best time zone. Wherever you are today, it is Anytime. And this is Anytime with Ken and Alden. And Alden, I don't like that little catchphrase I just said. Maybe I've had too much coffee in the morning. It's
Look, man.
wherever you are, it's Anytime.
I'm not even going to defend the East Coast. You picked the wrong guy to start the time zone beef with, because I'll capitulate real quick. I'll be like, you know what? I had fun over there. Maybe you're right.
You know, well, maybe we'll do an Anytime debate show. They're popular on the internet. Love doing them. Check out Subjective Wars going on Force Center right now. We'll do the time zone debate. But I'm sorry, the Pacific, the Pacific time zone, the West Coast, it's the best time zone. You get to watch a baseball game at 7 and not 10 o'clock. Come on, you can't win.
That's really good. And during like the early days of Disney Plus originals, where we were up at 3 a.m. and you guys got them at midnight, you could enjoy them and go to bed. That was nice too. Definitely, that's got to be on there. I know fast food we've talked about. That's a potential bracket. There's gonna be some fights coming up.
There's a lot. I remember, and look, we're kind of a-holes on the West Coast when it comes to stuff. And we were complaining about the midnight release. So we got to stay up till midnight to watch Mando. And you were like, a-hole, I got to get up at 3 a.m. Then they moved it. They moved it back to like 9 and 6 our time, and now we're complaining about it dropping during dinner. We're just horrible. We're horrible people.
Yep, that's what happens. That's what the LA elite lifestyle is like, and the world's burning, and you're arguing about Barbie, which we will get to. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'd love to say I'm a professional that sits down in the studio 2 hours before. But when I was 20 years old and I hosted the morning show in Pismo Beach, California, K-Bear 95, my shift started at 6, and I'd get there about 5:52 every day. And I'm not proud of it. It's not a good trade. But today, I had a vet appointment. You've got some stuff going on. We got a wonderful guest coming up. Ken Plume is here to discuss disruption being destruction. And we both just slid in the studio minutes ago. It's my fault. No, it's true. And I think a lot of that is the longer you do any type of broadcast or podcasting, the more like quietly arrogant you get about your ability to just pull it all together. You never feel that way when you're doing it. It's a lot like procrastinating in high school, where you're like, yes, I got it. But then when you're doing it, you're like, I'm an idiot. There's
those tests, those studies that came out a few years ago that I actually felt ashamed for and realized that's the truth. I was one of those kids. I was a gate kid. They pulled me out of class and said, "You're special. You're a smarty pants. You go in this room and learn differently." You know what I learned? I learned bad habits, because like I can write an essay on the bus in the morning and get an A+. I don't need to try hard.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, we were having panic attacks in high school in the morning because we're like, what did we even do with the time that we stole? We're playing Call of Duty. I didn't even do anything useful.
What do we do? Hey, this is Anytime with Ken and Alden. Anytime on air, online. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. I want to shout out to some people watching live. Ranger Donald says, East Coast time zone is superior. Ranger Donald, he loves boats and Fortnite. He doesn't know anything. GMT, Natalie Francini says, GMT's best time zone. I love this. I want to shout out John for the Passes Live. Great channel if you like some baseball card and sports nostalgia. Says, what's happening, Ken? What is happening? And there you go. Jonas is here. He's in a very different time zone. So a lot of time zones checking in. David McKay say the best time zone. He's got some theories too, being way far away from us here. We also want to say, hey, you got super chats or questions, get them in. We appreciate them. Helps keeps the show going. And we'll drop them in at the end of the show. We'll do a Q&A today. Alden, I just want to slow down, take a breath, and say, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Like full disclosure, like real life is like a different entity entirely. The industry is it's going certainly in some directions, which we'll talk with Mr. Plume. It's definitely going somewhere. We both have day jobs and different things that we have to do, and I love doing show prep for this, and then having to have a yelling "Where's my money?" conversation with somebody else. Those are always fun. I'm sure you've had plenty of those in your
Oh, I've been having "Where's the money" conversations all week. But are you yelling for the money, or is someone yelling at you for the money?
Oh, me yelling like, "Hey, it's Friday, chop chop, let get it out." So,
It's Friday. Paychecks are on my mind. Yeah, yeah. No, I always try to be honest and genuine in my broadcasting, even if I put on the Tom Brokaw sheen of just trying to be a talking head. Yeah,
yeah,
it's been my back's feeling better today. I could actually sit for an extended period of time.
that's
That's
good.
promising. But yeah, everything else is getting in the way, and the world's moving. As you're going to see, as we soon here get into my news segment, I had to complete the script on Wednesday, and I was trying to make addition. I mean, news was changing and breaking, and even one of the stories I was covering was changing and breaking today. And it's just we keep saying it, Alden, but it's just I think every week is just too full of not just news but life changing, potentially world changing events.
Yeah, I mean, we had a moment off air with our guest coming up, Ken Plume, where you said something ruling is in, and all three of us were reacting differently to different things.
Different rulings.
Is it this case, or the international courts? And the fact that we have to ask these questions,
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
testament to the times.
Yeah, it's good. I want to shout out Charlie Ashby. Congratulations on making it through the week, everyone. You know what?
Thank you. Thank you.
That's true. That's true. 8984M says, I procrastinated on a programming stuff yesterday. Big regret. Big regret. Feel almost like Pretty Woman there. Big mistake. Huge. Big. Before we get to the news, though, we always like to take a little temperature check of where we're at. And we do that, Alden, by asking the question, what Ben Affleck are we?
The Ben Affleck that we are this week. This is the first time we're going to use one of Ben's actual performances. This is an image from cinema.
Okay.
This right here.
Cinema.
Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, better known as Batman. This is Ben. And this was, I think, all of us who work in this industry all week. This was me today. This is me trying to keep it together, but like wrath and rage just beneath the surface. You could tell he went to an event and has now come back from it based on the shirt. This is pain, and he's in a bat cave, which I think is
this is hilarious. He literally looks like he's about to do a YouTube video podcast. He's just about ready to. That's me 5 minutes ago. That's you now. That's where we're at.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Justice League channel. Today we're going to talk about our own box office. Yeah, it's awful, and he just but he's going to turn it on the second he needs to, even at detriment to his own personal health. Which I think is the story of Batman.
That's absolutely amazing, buddy. That's a great pick. This is completely. It's your segment. It's your heart. You find the right picture for my mood. We don't even talk about it. You just know you find me where I'm at. You find the Affleck in me, Alden.
I think that's another potential shirt. Find the Affleck in you, and also it's something that we'll talk about, which is a lot of the times the reason we don't really need to talk about the Affleck segment beforehand, and I just pick it willy-nilly. Mm-hmm. Is because there are universal truths and universal struggles, especially right now. Every single person that we know that works in this industry felt like that this week.
I am choking on my own napkin. That's good. Also, I want to Ranger Donald. I like the split keyboard. Yeah, I remember the first time I got a split keyboard. I don't know. I got it at Fry's in 2002, and I was like, "This solves everything." It made my life miserable. I did not like the split keyboard.
I've never attempted it. I never got an ergonomic mouse or split keyboards or any of that.
I do miss. I'm happy with my iPhone. I whatever. I'm not fully in the Apple cult, but I'm in it. I switched, but I used to never be. And I do miss the tactile keyboard of the BlackBerry. And we're talking about disruption being destruction today. I am interested in a device that was unveiled last week at one of those consumer electronic conventions that you can put your phone in, your iPhone, and it gives you a keyboard again. I'm intrigued by this, but we'll see. We'll talk to Mr. Ken Plume coming up, author, producer, podcaster, interviewer extraordinaire, if that's destruction or disruption. We'll figure that out.
Yes, and also watch the BlackBerry movie. That goes for you and everybody watching. The BlackBerry movie is legitimately hilarious.
I want to watch that. I want to watch that because I was when I got my BlackBerry, Alden, it was the first time in my life that I felt cool.
You leveled up. You're professional.
Yeah. I lost it right away, the coolness, but it's there. All right. On that note, we are going to switch into the news segment for today, and I'll say this up top. A lot of news. I always say, hey, we're looking at some of the headlines. There's a lot of things going on, so bear with me on that. But we are going to dive in to the news today. Here's a look at some of the headlines making the world spin this week. And look, we don't want to keep saying his name, but it's hard to ignore that the New Hampshire Republican presidential primary held this past Tuesday was won by an insurrectionist, traitor, and sex offender still facing 4 criminal indictments. And it's clear that the path for Donald Trump becoming the Republican nominee in the general elections is as wide as the distance between him and Melania at a funeral. Trump defeated former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley with 54% of the vote. Haley took 9 delegates and 43% of the vote. Those looking for the same kind of false hope I have while telling people fast food tacos contain healthy, fresh ingredients will tell you that nearly 50% of the Republicans who turned out to vote did not choose Trump. And Haley took home the vote from those who consider themselves moderates by a 3-1 margin. And also, right before the primary, Ron DeSantis did what everyone thought he should do the moment he slipped his feet into a lift inside a cowboy boot, drop out of the race. And then the tough-talking Navy JAG, who had begun to take shots at Fox News for being too light on Trump, immediately bent the knee to the orange Lacey. Kiss the ring, Ronnie. Kiss the ring. This all might help Haley going forward, as she can perhaps pull in the voters who were happy with the idea of an animatronic human replica running this country or ruining it as he did Florida, if that's the way you choose to look at it. And man, look at us. Look at us. Suddenly rooting for a former South Carolina governor convinced that the Civil War was a minor skirmish over government overreach. But all of this is, as I said, a false hope. And you can tell by the quivering neck of Mitch McConnell that the truth is here for everyone to attempt to reckon with, barring a miracle from the God Trump definitely represents better than anyone else. It will be Trump versus Biden in November of this year, potentially making this the last year in our country's existence. Hell, he's already convincing Republicans to stop trying to solve the border crisis so he can blame it on Grandpa Joe, and he has vowed vengeance to the deep state, to his occult followers who believe the deep state has taken him down. Now, I know a lot of people aren't excited about the prospects of 2 guys born before the polio vaccine hit the market running for office, but this is where we're at. Face it, look deep into your soul. Replay the years from November of 2016 to, say, January 6, 2021, and ask yourself not just what you want out of this life, but what you want for the lives of those around you and those coming up behind all of us. Yep, one day the perfect political candidate will emerge. Someone with billions of TikTok followers who represents the impeccable intersectionality of every cause on every algorithm you believe in. But to completely misuse the words of Aragorn, today is not that day. We'll keep you updated after Las Vegas and Nevada, the next primary. I just assume Las Vegas is all of Nevada, and I know that's not true. And to remind us all about the importance of this election, unless you're one of those white male stand-up comedians that think, nothing will affect how you live, so why take it seriously? There is still a war going on in the Ukraine, or as Putin calls it, a long-form military operation, almost like it's long COVID. This week, a Russian 1176 transport plane, he said like someone who only knows military jets from G.I. Joe, carrying 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war and 9 Russians crashed in Russia's Belgorod region. I'm Ukrainian, and I kind of missaid that, but it's maybe because I hate the Russians. Killing all on board. Russia immediately accused the Ukrainian military of shooting it down and killing its own people. And well, that actually might have happened, which makes it sound like Putin's team is trying to create a YouTube thumbnail to increase rage clicking. Russia claims the 65 POWs were being flown in for a prisoner swap, which does happen in this war. But Ukraine also shoots down transport planes they feel are taking supplies to the front lines. And Kyiv claimed that in previous prisoner swaps, Russia alerts them and clears the airspace, and that this time the Russians just, said, oops, forgot to tell you, it slipped our mind. Though it's, now showing, I'm reading this teleprompter's driving me crazy. Though Russia is now saying, we sent the email, check your spam folder. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has called for an international investigation to discover the truth of the situation and accused Russia of playing with the lives of the Ukrainian people, with some intelligence reports claiming Russia was using the POWs as human shields while actually transporting supplies. And then, as I was about to copy and paste all of this into my script, putting the wrong sentence in my teleprompter, as you just saw, some reports are now saying it can't even be confirmed if anyone was was on the plane other than the crew, and Russia might be lying at there even being POWs on board. And all the while, Russia is maintaining its innocence on this with that same sly smile and shifty energy they have anytime one of Putin's enemies suddenly gets poisoned and jumps out of the fourth-floor window they happen to be thrown through. We'll keep you updated on this, and all this serves as a reminder about the nature of disinformation in times of war and that pesky little problem that Ukraine is losing ground, running out of things like, bullets, and a Putin victory in Ukraine is still considered by many to be a stepping stone to further conquests and more likely to push us all toward the third installment of the Great War than any other conflicts happening right now. And I don't want to be a downer or too cynical toward the horrors of the Middle East going on right now, but when you sign into your news app at the end of the night, click on all the stories, if you can even find one about the war in Ukraine, and find one that isn't buried behind stories like the Oscar snubs. Please, I'm just asking. Maybe just consider it at the end of the night. All right, finally. Oh, crap. Sorry, look at that. And finally, the nominations for the 96th Annual Academy Awards were announced this week. And boy, howdy, they done messed it up again. This according to all your friends on social media with two working thumbs and a desire to yell at the world. And even the people with one thumb. Oppenheimer, the heartwarming tale of one man's dreams of changing the world, led the nominations list with 13 nods, and in keeping in line with director Christopher Nolan's wishes, no one nominated for that film will be able to sit down during the ceremony. Barbie, Oppenheimer's reluctant tag team partner in the pop culture world, took home 8 nominations, but it was the 2 it didn't get that had the world talking. And talking and talking. But before we get to that, let's highlight some of the nominations that were made and were there, like the fact that in what one can only assume was a clerical error by the Academy, a woman got nominated for directing. French director Justine Triet was nominated for her film Anatomy of a Fall, which is also the words the young children of Robert De Niro will use when he shuffles down the red carpet like the 80-year-old father that he is. De Niro was nominated as a supporting actor for his work in the gardening adventure Killers of the Flower Moon. And no, I haven't watched a movie in years. That movie star, Lily Gladstone, was nominated in the lead actress category, and while the world isn't perfect and change happens very, very, very slowly, it shouldn't be lost on anyone that a person of indigenous blood was nominated and will appear at an award show that only 50 years ago contained an audience of A-listers booing Native American activist Shasheen Littlefeather after she accepted Marlon Brando's Oscar in 1973 to help draw attention to the stereotyping of Native Americans in film. Only took 5 decades. Nikki Haley was right. But all right, yeah, as you probably heard, though Ryan Gosling and America Ferrera were nominated for their supporting roles in Barbie, which should be celebrated, and the film itself is up for Best Picture in what sounds like a pitch for the sequel to the movie Barbie 2, director Greta Gerwig and lead actor Margot Robbie were not nominated, though Robbie was nominated as a producer and would be able to take the stage if, Barbie would pull off the upset and beat Saving Private Ryan, the nuke version. And yes, this does seem like a highway robbery, the likes of which we have not seen since Fast and the Furious 5. I, for one, though, will celebrate the nomination of Gosling and Ferrera and the fact that Barbie is a movie that changed lives and will continue to change lives for many years to come, with apologies to those forever changed by Barry Keoghan's penis and Saltburn. All right? There's more to have about this conversation, but that's the news, Alden. Anything you want to chat about today?
Oh, buddy.
Yeah?
This Barry Keoghan joke hit a little too close to home, and I gotta tell you.
Tell me.
My mother watched Saltburn.
With
you? No.
With you there? I haven't seen it yet.
After I had seen it, and she comes out, and we're talking about it, and she talks about how she had heard something Barry Keoghan, and he was naked in the movie, and I had to watch my mom try to tell me that he had a big penis without actively saying it. I watched her dance around the words. I watched her try to process what she had seen. And yeah.
Wait a minute. Did you walk into the kitchen with a cup of coffee and she just was like, I need to talk to you about something.
She's out back and she's like, I forgot to talk to you. I finished that Saltburn. And it was great. And the actors and this, that, and then we just talked about it a little bit, and then suddenly she was like, and he was, I got it. I understood what they were saying about,
About,
Hey,
it's on my list to see. You know me. I don't watch a lot of the movies these days, but I love the movies I love. And I'm trying. I was having a conversation with another comic, a great comic, Jason Galern, and we were both talking about how as middle-aged old white men, we just watch documentaries, and that's great. We're gonna live that world. But he's like, hey, my wife's encouraging me to try to watch more things. So Alden, you got to pressure me into watching a little more things these days.
I will. We can make a Ken knapsack letterbox account. And it'll be like your 4 favorites: Young Guns 2, and then Young Guns 2 3 more times. I actually don't know what your other 4 favorite movies would be. I mean, Star Wars is easy, but
I always put those like Star Wars and
they're like
the Beatles and tacos. I put on a shelf. We have conversations about my favorite things. Those are Hall of Fame inductions, and we get there. We want to acknowledge too, as it's happening. It's something we've kind of been monitoring and waiting for, and that is the ICJ is the World Court in The Hague, and they did rule today. Though the case is ongoing, it might not actually be finished, and I've been watching videos. I've been trying to understand that. I have to own my lack of understanding of the entire picture of how these world courts work, and one can't enforce. This is the one that can't enforce. The other one can press criminal charges, or not press, but can actually maybe arrest people. But they ordered Israel to prevent genocidal acts in Gaza, but not to end the war. Developing, just want to mention that story, Alden. I know something that's been on your list to follow, and you are paying attention to as well.
absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where we want to reiterate because much like how Stan Lee said, every comic could be someone's first comic. Every episode of any show we do could be the first one. And so you do want to reestablish your stances, especially as the world is literally changing. And there's a lot of difficulty, a lot of push and pull about what to say, what to do. But we which always want to make it clear that we are following the story and we're mortified. And to say we don't agree with some of the decisions is an understatement of the century, but we will have more on that as we can with show prep and things. And it's hard.
Yeah. And my initial swing through it is I'm not necessarily surprised of the ruling, in terms of what you got to prove, but I'm always worried about some of the outcomes, right? Where this could cause some people to be like, see, it's A-OK over there. We told you it was A-OK over there. They're just fighting the simple war, and 25,000 citizens aren't dead. And again, it's always the fallout, right? And it's ongoing. So I agree with you. We're looking into it, but I also have to own, like, I can't speak on it with any sense of authority today, because as we were sitting down in the studio, the ruling was starting to come in. So just want to acknowledge that as well.
Absolutely.
We got some great stuff coming up. We're not done talking the news. We got more on the entertainment side of it, but do you want to kind of toss, because I mentioned it and stole your entertainment news thunder, I do want to discuss a little bit the Oscar snubs, because we have multiple truths approaches around here. But what's your thoughts here? And you're someone who has 2 thumbs and likes to yell on the internet. I definitely love and respect you for it.
So true. Now, this is a situation of you, the royal you, can be right about something while also arguing the wrong aspect of the problem. And I'll explain what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get you.
So Margot Robbie, actress extraordinaire, has been lighting up our screens now for close to 11 years since her big breakthrough, Wolf of Wall Street. Just an incredible performer. And then Greta Gerwig, the first and I believe only woman to have directed 3 Best Picture nominees with Lady Bird, Little Women, and now Barbie. And the only person I think ever to do your first 3 get Best Picture nominees of any gender or sexuality, sexual orientation. Incredible. And they individually get snubbed. Now, here's the thing, is you immediately get the tribalism that comes out, like, but this got in, and because they didn't, and that causes an overshadowing of some incredible achievements. Like we mentioned, Justine Triet getting in is also a political moment, because she criticized President Macron over there in France. And because of these criticisms, there's a domino effect that her film did not get submitted as France's entry for Best Foreign. So she bucked her own system and her own oppression to get in. Lily Gladstone, I mean, come on. I mean, Lily Gladstone has a storybook rise as an Indigenous woman, as a person native to what is now the United States. The terminology of Native American is complicated because of actual North America, and then that is not just us. But it's difficult to to see their stories get overshadowed by it. Lily Gladstone, when I say storybook, by the way, her high school yearbook says most likely to win an Oscar
I
with
saw
her
that.
and
That's
one of
great.
her partners. So she's great, and was on the John Green, Hank Green like YouTube crash courses talking about filmmaking back in the day. Early YouTube
Oh,
host.
yeah.
So I want this for her, and we're yelling now about this when to me what we should be yelling about is the fact that Picture, the top award, was expanded to 10 nominations back during Dark Knight time. In 2008, Wall-E, Dark Knight, Best Picture gets upgraded so that it can hold up to 10 nominations. Doesn't always have to be, but it has been ever since.
Yeah.
Why then are actor, actress, screenplay, and director still sitting at 5? Should the conversation not be bring more seats to that table? That's what frustrates me. And it's the fact that instead of having that conversation, it's they didn't award Barbie enough. Sorry, 8 Oscars is incredible. 8 Oscar noms is incredible. $1 billion. Then you get people bring in it was the highest grossing. That I don't even want to hear that. That should have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah.
So very frustrating.
Yeah, no, I really love what you're saying, and I think you reflect a lot of things that I'm feeling over too. As I have said before, it's not just a joke that I don't watch movies. I got out of the movie news world and all that stuff, and don't pay attention to it as much. But I did in the '90s. I was that little Oscar nerd that had his sheet of every nominee and would place prop bets and all. And I used to watch. I love it, and I get it, and I do think it's important. I've never liked turning art into a competition, as if only 5 names represent the true answer, the best of the best of the best. And I think there's absolutely a valuable conversation to be had about these two snubs. There's always going to be snubs. There's always going to be discussions around it.
Yes.
I think the Oscars have gotten better, but that's not the end of the journey, right? That's the same type of thing of how you discuss it and the fallout. Like we still have ways to go. Not just in terms, I want to make sure I'm saying this, not just in terms of like diversity of the choices, but just how and who's voting for it. All that stuff is moving forward better and better, but it's still not there. So I absolutely think everyone's right to have these conversations and have strong opinions about Gerwig and Robbie not getting nominated in those categories. They're nominating other ones there. But yeah, I think it's important to celebrate what's there. America Ferrera getting nominated is great. I think Gosling getting nominated for a movie that could easily have been written off by the Academy voters as a comedy, right? Which they don't have a great relationship with comedy. Is it just straight up comedy? No, it's funnier than The Bear, but it's not straight up comedy. But for him to get nominated in that category, I actually think it is kind of a win, a celebration of that kind of well-rounded 360-degree performance.
Yes.
And Lily Gladstone, I think it's very important. And Killers of the Flower Moon, so many people, I made a joke about it, but people are responding to that movie. Again, conversations on all sides about what the movie, and that's okay. Sparking conversations is not bad. But anyways, I think you and I are in the same place of it. A lot of
there's fine tuning. There's fine tuning to do to the actual organism that is the Academy, and they've added members, and they keep bumping up those percentages, and it will grow. I mean, you mentioned Gosling's nomination. I mean, you and I, the Star Wars guys, we know Alec Guinness got an Oscar nomination for playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. Flash forward a few decades, Johnny Depp is nominated for Best Supporting for Captain Jack Sparrow. Ian McKellen is nominated for playing Gandalf at the first time, I believe. And then, so is genre going to make a return, that this man playing a living toy? Can we finally start recognizing those roles again? I hope so. Yeah. Comedy, Marissa Tomei, in my cousin Vinny, might be the greatest, like, this is a comedic role to ever win an Oscar. A straight up funny, sexy, quippy character that gets in. And we got away from that for a long time. So I'm hoping that's a positive.
And even then, going back to that, the conversation I think was finally the fires of that was put out, but her win was considered for years. The folklore was, well, it was an error. Jack Palance read it wrong. She didn't actually win. We know that's not true. We know that, as we saw later on with what was it? The
La La Land, Moonlight.
La La Land. Yeah, they will correct it. We don't just need Warren Beatty to correct it. It'll be corrected. So we can put that aside. But for years, that was the folklore. Alden, before the days of the internet, it just was accepted. Well, she didn't actually win. Jack Palance read it wrong, they have sexism and ageism all in one conversation. Pull up
Yeah.
some of the comments there. You guys got some great comments and thoughts here. Aaron says, my issue is the Academy seems to have the study that only one female director is allowed to be nominated one time. Trits Nom was great, but Gerwig and Song arguably deserve them to be there too. Yeah, it's the thing of the danger sometimes of cool. We have a sports panel of 6 dudes. Let's throw one woman on there and we're good, right? You have to work past that. So I agree with Aaron's take as well. Just in terms of the straight competition of it, there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, and that's sometimes the way it is. And when you only have 5 slots, I think if the nominations do truly mean that much, and I think they do, you see people have passionate feelings of it, and even in our chat today, then let's just expand it. Let's put the potential to get up to 10. It doesn't have to be 10 every year. If nominations, just the name being included, is important, and I do think it is, then let's just expand it. It's changed.
I mean,
let's change it.
It's very easy, I think, for people that don't care as much, or just are not one for awards in general, or only more concrete awards that can be decided mathematically. Like in sports, awards can be decided mathematically. Is pretty much. I don't know if they have
or direct. If Gerwig's in there with the boxing gloves, that's a different. That's
exactly.
different competition. And maybe that's how we should decide best director, best actor. We just put them in a ring.
Just Scorsese with a German suplex. Yeah, maybe. But so it becomes easy, I think, for people to say, "Well, it doesn't matter." But
right.
It does. To the viewer, people like me, because I am 90s Ken with my little sheet and everything, it doesn't really matter. People hate it. They say they're never going to watch again, and then they do next year, much like wrestling. But for the people, we know creatives, you know actors, and you live with an actor. It does matter. It's currency.
Yeah.
It's money.
It changes career. Yeah. And that had to. That was a lot about the diversity conversation of it. It's these other careers are getting launched and other people's careers aren't being launched, and you have to we push past that. And I want to make clear, when I say things are better, I'm not one of those people that goes things are better, bye bye.
Right.
I had a conversation with someone about racism one time, and they were like, I don't know they went, why are they mad? Obama became president. It's like, that solved everything.
And then we were fine, right?
Yeah. We're fine. The conversation keeps going, and I do like how far the ball has moved down the field. I think all these conversations are important, And look, I've seen some great think pieces and essays and headlines about what Barbie does do and what Barbie fails to do. And again, sometimes those conversations go in places I don't completely follow, but it's good to have those conversations. But the film affected people. It is and will always be this kind of almost, hopefully not once in a lifetime accomplishment, but a historic accomplishment as a film for what it did across a lot of quadrants this year.
Absolutely. And my last thought on this is, whether it's the Oscars or anything else, if anybody watching, this is a lesson that I think is important for everybody. Systems, whether that's the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences or any other system, will make people that don't look like me and Ken, for example, will make them battle it out for that one female director slot or that indigenous slot or whatever. And that is tactical, whether it's active or not. It is tactical, and it's we expanded it, we added members, we added votes, but you didn't add places for those votes to go. The seats at the table thing is so essential in anything, in any. I mean, we've worked in these media spaces where we have been told separately, independently, in completely different states, areas, companies. Well, we got the girl slot on this show.
Yeah.
And things like that. And it's like, well, that's not so that we didn't actually do anything by doing that. We gave one person that day a chance to shine, but that doesn't solve the inherent problem that you even thought the girl slot.
It's been prevalent. Sometimes it's unspoken and sometimes it's directly spoken. In the mid-'90s, I've told the story, I think, on Twitter. Liz Fair actually liked this tweet. I was trying to introduce an artist named Patty Rothberg to our playlist at our radio station, and I was told by the bosses there, we already got some chicks on stools singing. We don't need another one, right? Like we have our 2 or 3 slots. We're good. And that was directly ordered and told to me. Now, I at one point I worked graveyards. I played what I want, snuck it in. But that was a direct order. Now, we have our girl slots filled up.
Yep.
And add blank slot to any of those conversations, right? And so we have to be aware of that. And again, I think you got a good take on it there, my friend. Even with all your thumbs and all your rage.
And there's a lot of rage. Oh, by the way, congrats to John Williams on number 54. Congrats,
number 54.
buddy.
Number 54. Number 54. I've heard some people in the business complain that Johnny W should stand aside and let the next generation take over. And you know what? I'm about next generations and generational change. But the dude still wants to go. He's still playing at a top game. Let him go. Let him win some awards or get nominated.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
All right. We're almost done with the news. We're going to get to our guest here shortly. We're going to talk about disruption, that statement and that phrase and that description and that word we've heard a lot the last few years, how it's actually destruction. Our guest is on the way. But any final thoughts on the news, Alden, before we move on?
My final thought is agreeing with this comment. Click that like button. Click that like button. Definitely do that. Share, hit retweet, all that stuff. I will say this is not a pat on the back for me or you. I don't mean to be like we're so humble, but I will say we don't do, I think, the YouTube-y stuff enough of plugging and promoting while we're like we are conversationalists.
Look, as I said before, Brian, you bring up Brian Tiller. He's, me and him and Sean Arnold co-wrote 7 songs. We released an album late last year. We got more things coming very shortly. Some new music and some new mixes. The Moon Agers. Yeah, and so when I put that out, one of my friends or someone I know was like, "You're a modern day Renaissance man." I was like, "Yeah." That doesn't work these days. So I agree. Yeah, appreciate it. Like, share. And as we say often, but I'll remind you all here, we do have the Anytime with Ken and Alden YouTube channel. We're kind of building that up in the background, but because this is a monetized higher sub channel and it's not super subbed, so keep subscribing. We're in 2 locations, which even that might be a tactical error. But Alden, at one point, you just put aside the algorithms and just kind of do what you want.
We were taught at young formative ages to turn off our targeting computers and just feel.
Just feel.
And that's what we're doing. I'll never stop.
That's what we're doing. Well, all right. On that, that's a end of the news. But we are going to get to our conversation here. As if I can, I think our guest is ready. I think he is. Oh yeah. Oh, the music's going to play again. There he is. I'm going to bring in right now a wonderful man. And why is he a wonderful man? Because we win at Fortnite a lot together. That's right. We're Fortnite buddies. But he is he's also a Renaissance man, and we're going to talk about that. He's a longtime host of a great show called A Bit of a Chat. He's a founding member of IGN's Film Force. He was a producer on the Milius doc about director John Milius. He's got a show you should check out called Open Chat. I've been on a show, Force 5. He's a producer of the We Got This podcast, author of The Art of DuckTales. Oh my gosh, so much. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Ken Plume. Mr. Plume, how are you?
A low bar to set. We win on Fortnite a lot.
Look, man.
That came before the other stuff on the list.
It's the most important thing. When you text me or I text you and we say, "Are you down to crown?" That's the highlight of my day.
A phrase that requires all the context of what is it associated with. No, it's nice to have the little victories in life.
Victories.
And it says something about our generation that we then don't stop and walk away with that victory. We're intent on losing it before we walk away.
Yeah. We can't just walk away.
That's called the Ric Flair. Actually,
Jared the Dark Jedi says, "Are you down to crown?" Goes hard, and it does. It does indeed.
We didn't even mention Crown Town. See, there's so many phrases that we are awkward for us to use.
But we love doing them. We're going to have a discussion that I've been teasing for a bit here, because quite frankly, when Ken and I do hang out and relax at the end of our days, or at the beginning of his, because he keeps vampire hours, and we have conversations about what's going on in the world. There's a lot out there, and disruption is destruction is a conversation Ken and I have been having off air for a while, and I wanted to bring it here. Before we get to it, and I want to establish what we mean by that, Ken, and I'll pitch it to you for that. I want to set up that we, and I'll say the 2 Kens here, but also Alden, whose soul Apple is 50 years older than he actually is. We're not old men screaming at clouds. We're going to talk about change and technological advances and new things, and we like that. We like generational exchange. We like kind of moving with the times. We don't want to stay in one place. Stasis is bad, and the proof's in the pudding. Mr. Ken Plume here was an early adapter to this little thing called podcasting, and Ken, when I say it, it's true. You were one of the first podcasters, really, in the world.
Yeah, no, we started before it was called a podcast because there was no iTunes. So the idea of being a podcast was we just dropped audio on the internet for people to download the files and listen to. Yeah. And then along came this marketplace to put them into for distribution. So, yeah.
I've even had those conversations with Ken where I'm like, Grandpa Plume, tell me about podcasting in the old times. How did people get it?
Yeah. I'm sorry, this might be a dumb question, but did Apple coin the term podcast?
Was the iPod.
Yeah, iPod.
Oh my God.
So that was why it was a podcast.
I knew it was a dumb question. It's right there in front of me. To the point where I didn't even recognize that at a time pod was like this. What is that? What does that mean?
A broadcast on an iPod is your podcast.
That's so crazy. So it was you and Kevin Smith and all that stuff.
Jesse Thorne.
A
lot of that
Marin.
Early. Yeah, I think pre-Marin.
Pre-Marin, yeah.
This would have been for me. I think 2004 would have dropped.
Good Lord.
20 years of dominance.
Good year, 04. And here's my first question, Mr. Plume, is why didn't you kill it when you had the chance? Why didn't you drive a stake into its heart?
like so many things, if you speak literal things, if you watch the thing, you just didn't know. You didn't know till it was too late. And then suddenly we're in this position where we all should have just walked away and embraced the traditional media we all thought we were disrupting.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's the starting point of disruption and change and growth. And Ken, I'll pitch it to you. This is an open forum conversation here. What does the word disruption mean to you, and why do we consider disruption often, maybe not always, but often, to end up being destruction?
I think it's like anything that becomes a buzzword for people who just want to destroy things, like content. Yeah, disruption at one time was supposed to mean the idea that you're coming in with fresh ideas. You're going to reinvent something. You're going to bring a different angle, a unique angle to something that might have become staid or somehow calcified. But I think like everything else, it transitioned into how can we squeeze every last dollar? How can we eliminate all of these extraneous costs like employees? What is the human element we can take out of this and simplify this process to where we don't need to allocate the money we want to keep for ourselves in this increasingly burgeoning moneyed class. How can we keep that and eliminate everything else? How can we automate everything humanly possible to eliminate everything that is human within that process possible?
I'm so depressed.
It is depressing.
You should have been here for the whole ride, Alden.
It was just like at what point did we allow, because the automation is so key to it, right? And it's like, I think, with you guys being in the age bracket right above me, I think maybe your fathers and mothers were probably in that like, oh, the factory jobs are changing and this is changing. And like, I think on paper, like a lot of things, automation, like, okay, cool, we can make the hard labor stuff suck less. And that sounds great. But then we got to the point where we were like, and we can do the same thing for fun and games and friendship.
When does assistance become replacement?
Yeah.
Is the big issue is when they, and that's a line that they kept pushing up against of how much can we push away? How much can we go, well, we really don't need you in that position because we put this in that position instead of you. And the problem is you reach a collapse point. It's like Jenga. They're playing Jenga with all of us, and they're slowly taking pieces away. But the ultimate thing is it's going to collapse. It's all going to collapse. And unfortunately, I think we're all reaching the collapse point across all of these industries because everyone's been taking so many pieces out of it, and they don't care because they're also just strip mining. None of these people who run these companies are there for the long term. They're there
Mhm.
to make the time that they're in that company as profitable as they can for themselves. They
Right.
always have the one eye on the door
Yeah.
when they're there. So what emotional investment do they have in making sure that a company is sustainable beyond their tenure there?
Yeah, and it definitely all seems to, I kind of look for the simple ways to boil it down, and it flows into that river of, power, unlimited power. Not the force lightning hasn't emerged yet, but it's there. But the economic disparity, the wage gap, the wealth gap, all those kind of things just continue to grow, and that's and you've seen it the start of this year, the end of last year. How many companies are just laying people off, and I don't know what to do to stop it. And it just seems, Ken, that I don't know if you agree with this, that a lot of it might seem, hey, again, I'm a paying Spotify user, right? And I have my music on there too. I love the 2 cents I might get this year, but I use it. And it's easy to maybe just be like, it's just music, right? They're just changing music, but it slides and it just goes to all these bigger issues, I think.
Because it's removed the human element from it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not having to interact with artists. You're not having to put in the effort to go to a store to go buy the music. It's all readily there. The entirety of available music, until streaming services decide they want to take something off of it. So that's the fallacy that they sell you of the permanence of this digital streaming media being available to you, everything, everywhere, all at once, is all a lie that they've sold.
And I think it ties in with what you're saying about who's doing it. Is that if it's a CEO that's only concerned with maximize their reign, versus the rare person that seems like they maybe care. I think all three of us have gotten to the point where you have to wonder: is there a single person running any of these corporations that likes the thing that their corporation makes?
David Zaslav didn't start off in the mailroom at Warner Brothers because he just wanted to get into the entertainment industry and loved movies so much, and he just wanted to be part of the magic. No. These hedge fund managers that become CEOs and vice versa, they're not in it because they love the industries they're in. They're in it because they have an MBA or they're a friend of a friend, and they've managed to, how to succeed in business their way up to the top of the heap, but they have no love for it.
Yeah.
There's no emotional investment in it.
And I think that's why we get tricked sometimes by, like, I would say maybe first era Bob Iger 1, where we were like, he's a powerful billionaire, but he really cares, and he empowers the
creators. Wears cardigans.
Cardigans equals care. Or even like we'll talk about this a little bit later in the show, but like someone like Triple H working his way up from talent to CCO, or Kevin Feige, who was assistant producer. He interned for Donner because he loved Superman so much, and now look at him. And it's like we mythologize it to the point where we don't realize what's happening behind the myth.
Yeah, no. I think that, but you get so few people that are invested getting to those positions, and then we make it even harder for when they get to those positions. Then, as a public, we're ready to tear them down because we also, as a viewing public, have been imbued with so much outsized power to be critical of things without the appreciation that should go hand in hand with it of what it takes to make these things, because we're so divorced from the process of seeing the nuts and bolts on the creative side and the fact that how things can go wrong within that process, but how people keep trying to make things. And having an appreciation for that has disappeared with the amount of content, the amount of material, the amount of ways that these companies do like to hide what goes into making these decisions. Or that streaming just dumps 10 episodes of a thing on a night and you plow through them and then it's gone. It's disposable. It's Kleenex of entertainment, even though that was somebody's emotional investment for who knows how many years to get that project actually made.
Yeah.
And so I fault us as a society as well. We're just as complicit.
Look, I'll bring this up right now. I hate that people know me as well as they do. I'm going to predict Alden's next comment. We live in such a what have you done for me lately
Why
society.
is that not a shirt?
I say that, Ken Flume, I say that all the time, and they know I do. I hate it. I hate that they know.
You've built a community around your words.
Embrace it. That's how you build a store.
And going to this, I'll take it this direction of just trying to, just disruption is this, dare I say, tech bro phrase that popped up. And I worked at a company that was supposed to cover movie news, but every day we had to have meetings about disrupting things. And, and it's easy to make fun of. But at the same time, I like innovation. I like change. And it is about that balance. But I don't think I fully realized it was a punchline for me to kind of make some fun of some people, either online or people I know. And one night, and I'm not saying this is the be all end all of where I want to take the conversation, but like I use Uber or Lyft, right? And it definitely disrupted the industry. And we got the movie out there with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. You can all check it out. I've seen parts of it. Okay, great. But I liked it. It changed the game. I didn't have to worry about, did I have too much to drink? I could be responsible. And by the way, I was always responsible. But there was like, now I'm free to go do this, or I don't have to worry about parking. And it's hard to get a cab in LA because you have to get a phone book and call a number. And I was all in on that. And then one night when prices changed, surges, loss of drivers because the companies weren't paying them right, all these kind of issues behind the disruption, I was left with Grace and our friend Jen Murrow at the Comedy Store till 2 a.m. because we couldn't get a ride home. And I remember thinking, this has all been destroyed. I'm sitting here.
They destroyed the cab industry.
They destroyed what was working for profit and fun.
But I think the word to focus on is one that you brought up that was ignored when these snake oil salesmen would go in and preach this lie to industries. Is innovation is what it should have been.
Right.
Disruption is what somebody who likes to come in and sell themselves as a maverick, as an independent thinker, as that is an inherently destructive term, to disrupt something. To come in and go, listen, I might have a better idea. Let's try it, which is what innovation implies, is a constructive term. That's like, let's take a thing and let's make it better. Disruption is, hey, I'm smarter than you. I'm going to come in here with my smarter ideas because you're stupid with your dumb ideas. And I'm going to fix this because I'm the one who has the smarts to fix this.
There's an inherent malice.
And it is strictly from an ego perspective.
Yeah.
And also in this tech age that we live in, where so much of it is, you have so much money behind the kind of people who have that kind of ego, that have that kind of swagger to walk in and sell to people who equally want to take the easy route to make money, who love the idea. What can you do to make me this money this quickly? What is this magical thing that you're presenting to me? Is that the buy-in on that is so easy when you come in and you sell like to like when it comes to ego.
Ours, Bradley says, AKA sociopath. That's someone who comes in there.
And you don't have an investment in that community. And like what I was trying to, the point I was with the tech side of it is where you're then, okay, I've sold you the lie. I've said I'm gonna drill a hole from here to Northern California, and you bought my lie. Well, then I'm gonna delegate. I'm gonna just throw money at some other a bunch of employees. You go figure it out. You go figure out this thing. Because I don't have the inherent ability as the snake oil salesman to realize any of this nonsense. So I'm going to throw it, and it's not even my money. I'm going to throw your money that I suckered you into. And don't worry, I'm going to take some off the top before I throw it away on this. Into what is, at the outset, a failure. Because they don't believe they can pull it off. They just believe in themselves enough to fool you that they can pull it off. And that's the only goal that they have in the majority of these disruption scenarios. Anyone who still uses that term is wholly suspect. Anyone who still uses content as a term for what they're producing needs to think about how emotionally invested they are in what they are doing, how sincere they are in what they are doing.
Yeah, beyond
Preach.
just the casual use, but the big time official
Right.
use of
And I don't know
capital
about
C
you
as
two.
content.
I've gone through that moment where
Yeah.
you reflexively start using it because that's the zeitgeist word
That's
to
the
try
word,
and let people know what you're doing, and everyone else is using it. Then you start thinking about what that implies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's just shoveling things in a hole.
It's
That's
more
not an
quietly sinister than disruption, but they speak to the same thing, which is that we've allowed people under the guise of doing something punk or different, or we're gonna move over here and we're gonna stick it to them. In the same breath, they're like, and it will be nicely packaged content that these two things cannot coexist, and yet they contribute to the same diluting and the same just a relentless breakdown of anything truthful. And then you have the counter of like, well, what would you call this? What would you call the show that we're doing right now? Anytime. It's like, I would call it what it is, a broadcast. I would call it material. I would call it talk programming.
or
Like,
call it by its name. It's Anytime with
yeah,
Ken Alden. You know,
yeah,
it's taking the identity away from things
right.
and boiling it down to it's just another piece of content.
Yeah.
It's taking the uniqueness away from all of these things in all of these industries. It's not, it's not the guy, Jerry, who picked me up. We had a unique conversation in the car when he was taking me back home. Now it's my Uber drivers here.
Yeah. Like, I feel that every time a rideshare car picks me up and I ask, "Hey, do you mind if I sit in the front?" And they're like, "No, what? Huh?" Like, I just like this. You picked me up, stranger, and we'll have a conversation. And this is this is not a simple conversation, though. I do like the comment from Ranger Donald, Fortnite boat lover. Ken Plume used to do a TED talk on this. I second.
I'm doing it here. I'm doing an Anytime talk.
And sorry to cover your face while we look at this comment, Ken. You look like you have a COVID mask on, and that's a smart thing. Every layoff, says Trey T, I've been involved in has been due to a new company officer, quote, disrupting a normal, currently effective business process. Their ego drives them to tear down and replace processes. Yeah. And again, so maybe it's sometimes a fine line. I used to have an old boss in the security industry of like, how we've always done it this way can't be the answer. And I actually agree with that because that speaks to complacency and maybe hopefully to what you're talking about, Ken, of innovation or reevaluating or growing and changing versus sometimes there would be we're going to move that out. We're going to cut staff and we're going to make it work because I need to do this, that. And it can be a fine line. It really can.
Blanket assumption that all change is good for change's sake.
Right.
Sometimes, and this is the thing where you have to actually invest the time to analyze the process that's going on. To bring in people who are actually experts about this thing and trust what they say and understand that there are people smarter than you.
Yeah.
Is that there is this belief that we need to change this thing because you're stayed. You're set in this process, but there's a reason processes exist in that this is tried, true, found to be safe, found to be effective, found that this is through the process of years that, hey, maybe you as the new CEO or the snake oil salesman, we're in a part of the process where we learn through mistakes of why this is the process that eventually was arrived at. Now, it's perfectly fine to have a reassessment to go in and go, is this still valid?
Right.
Because then otherwise you do calcify into things that need to be changed. We can talk about systemic things within our society that do need a periodic yes. And by periodic, I mean you can constantly go, is this the right process? Is this the right way of doing things? The right way of looking at things?
Yeah.
Is this something that needs to be addressed?
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong in going, oh yeah, no, this is the right way. This is an effective way to do this thing that we're doing. But it's good that we checked in on it, not to go in, we have to change for change's sake.
Yeah.
I think is where the problem in a lot of these processes, and the snake oil that comes in with these egocentric views of approaching these, like what I used to call with a person I worked with years ago, pot epiphanies. Where suddenly someone has a notion of thing and it's a grand idea and you simply can't convince them that that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And instead, because they are in a position of power that you are answerable to them, you have to follow through on the nonsense, and sometimes to the point where it's beyond recovery. You've now destroyed the very thing because they wouldn't listen. They had to see it to the end point of their epiphany okay, so I guess it didn't work. Well, by then you've already destroyed the thing because you were not willing to accept the expertise and experience of others around you. And that's when you get to a point of having a moneyed class like we do now, where they don't have to be answerable to anyone on a global scale. They are independent of the countries that exist within this world. Then it's always going to lead to an end point of, okay, well, you broke the toy.
No, this is and great comments. My buddy Laserbolt checks in. I love how companies that are bleeding money in 1,000 ways always cut jobs and pay to save money, and then when there are far more wasteful things going on. It all kind of slides to what you're saying. And in the elite class, and I was going to ask you, Ken, like there's, we chat about this. We have these wonderful, dreadful conversations when we're trying to relax. It's because I don't know if you agree, and Alden, if you agree, like seems to be a panic setting in by those of us who are looking around going, this isn't just slow. This is a rapid change across industries that's affecting lives, jobs, and how we do things. And again, change is good. Got it. But there's unintentional and unintended consequences. I look at the music industry. I have those things. I like having streaming music. I have 800 CDs in a storage shed I can't get to. It makes sense, but. You can't. Radio stations are gone. Fine, you don't like that, great. But like how you break artists, how you make artists, which creates money for several industries, not just Mick and Keith and their mansions in France, but like the trickle down, the actual trickle down is this destruction that I just feel a general panic about, and I don't know what to do other than have conversations like this, Ken, to show the world or highlight or spotlight it as best we can.
And it's like, because the royal, this nation can't legislate as fast as this stuff can move and change. We end up in these situations where, going to that comment, Laserbolt's comment about cutting jobs and where we're going to save money, right? What I'm about to say is both personal and it's in-house for our other shows, Casually Talk. So they take Willow off Disney Plus, right? Which is an attack on me personally. And they take it off and along with other things, and Max has done it too over in the Zaslav camp, citing cost-cutting reasons, which they can claim all they want is about maintaining and server space and all that stuff. I don't believe for a second that Disney doesn't have the server space. It's entirely about later residuals, and we know this, and they want to F the writers without Fing them. Fine. But at the same time, we are seeing these record bonuses and these different things happen for people like Iger, although he did suffer a cut recently. Sorry, Bob.
We're sorry. We're very sorry.
I know that bonus got depleted about 10 million, but it's Bob. Just like there should be
cardigan that day.
It was the depressed cardigan. It was more of like a Kurt Cobain cardigan. He was in his feels. But at this point, there is no legislation or oversight that exists to tell a media company you can't do that, and when we are also seeing X bonuses or X profits or X increases, and that would require people to care, and it would require people that are doing the legislation to not be old. It's not. I hate to be ageist even accidentally, but you can't explain.
You call me old all the time. Don't worry about
it. But there is plenty of legislation on the books for various things, like monopolies and such. That needs to be enforced. That has to go hand in hand, because a lot of this stuff does exist to regulate these things, and blatant insider trading moves on behalf that it does. It exists, but that also means that you also have to look at the fines that are levied for these things. Because if companies don't see a downside, there's that old calculus that went with car companies when it came to how many fatalities are too many fatalities monetarily to where we should address safety for these things. If you're going to give like a $500 million fine to a $500 trillion company or billion-dollar company, that's nothing to them. Right. That's not a penalty that changes behavior.
Yeah, they're just you're gonna eat that. That way they can get their gains later on. There's cars, and I've mentioned on the show a few times. I've been rewatching Mad Men. The cigarette saga is like a whole thing for like the first 3 or 4 seasons of like, well, the government keeps saying this, and it's like, yeah, well, that research ain't in yet, so we're gonna do this until they produce the bodies and the numbers and
much like a cost of living increase. We need a cost of penalty increase that is commensurate with how the economy has changed. The scale is wholly different from when these penalties were assessed 50 years ago on what would have been more than a slap on the wrist to affect change when behavior that originates from a place of solely seeking profit. That is why a company exists. That's particularly a publicly held company that is on Wall Street exists solely to make money for those invested in it. There's no morality that exists within a company that solely exists to make profit. Morality, that is the function of government to legislate that, because left unchecked, they're not going to regulate themselves. They're not going to make decisions that benefit anything other than the pursuit of that profit. So you can't, deregulation was the disruption of the 1970s and 80s.
God. Yeah. And no matter how much they tweet in all lowercase, like they're your buddy, it does not mean that they're going to, which by the way, this is an aside. I hate it so much. Every time, whatever comedian that, started it, I think with like Wendy's or whatever, they were funny. Everyone after that, not funny. And I hate it. And it serves to mask stuff like this. It feels like it's not doing anything. It feels harmless when your favorite big brand or movie brand or whatever is like, hey, bestie, it's a problem.
But let's talk about how disposable that is. Because do you know the name of the person who is running that brand that was actually constructing those tweets that everyone was delighted by? Do we know the creative person who was behind that?
Nope.
No, by intention.
Yep.
Yeah. It's AI chatbot 72. And an update, because I think the conversation around that umbrella term of AI, and we just say that in general, and yes, there's different versions, and I've spoken about being like, if AI can make someone move their arms again that can't right now, that's valuable. We need to look into it. It's the innovation that you're talking about, Ken, versus what we're seeing it now. I wanted to get your opinion. It's part of that conversation. The lawsuit came out today, Hollywood Reporters, where I was reading it, where Kelly Carlin and the estate of George Carlin has sued the old Dudesy podcast people for what they did with the AI George Carlin.
But he's just doing an impression.
He's just doing an impression. The promise was to resurrect old comedians, and just general. That's a curious and important lawsuit that just got brought forward.
Well, and I saw the hurt and disillusion in Alden's eyes, not yet as calcified and crusted over as ours, and all the tears we've cried over the years, Ken.
He's getting
talking about the state of journalism and all of these journalists being laid off. Someone, it was Mike Sachs, I think, a very funny author who brought up an old SNL sketch about a dying mall, and the only store left was the store selling the Scotch tape for all the other stores to hang up their out of business signs. And all the journalists being left are the journalists covering all the journalists who are no longer there because of all of these layoffs. And all of these companies, Condé Nast, Go Media, all of them thinking we're going to turn over to AI. AI is going to write all these articles. But then you have generations even younger than yours, Alden, who are turning away from printed journalism and turning to things like TikTok. And the difference is you're seeing the person who is presenting the information. I see the younger generation now who are turning away from traditional media because you can't actually prove that what you're reading was created by anybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see a thing on TikTok that is an actual person, which
For
again,
now.
we're running into an issue with that.
Yeah,
but
for
now, it humanizes
Yeah,
that
yeah.
process. People
Yeah.
turning back to live performance, stuff like Taylor
Yeah.
Swift's concert selling out, because it's not just listening to it on Spotify; it is an actual experience. And obviously, that's been it's been a very difficult thing over the past few years, pandemic wise, and getting
Mhm.
back into spaces like that. But that's why, again, I think things like TikTok are so important. When
Yeah.
journalism, when you have industries, I wouldn't even say it's the malicious 4D chess that everyone believes is being played about destroying media that can report on the things we're actually doing.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's simply just we make more money if we get rid of the employees. I think it's as simple as that.
I really
It's a nice add-on effect that
Yeah.
the oversight isn't there.
Yeah. A commented super chat from Dorita, who, of course, with their devilish ways, gives us $6.66. If we continue having a corporatist government, everything will be for profit, not for humanity or art. Humans must stop numbing with consumerism. Hi. Check out DJ Bruja Radio on Mixcloud, by the way. Dorina is someone who is very up on this stuff and very up on calling it out, or at least trying to find ways. I don't even say fight it, but just deal with it, confront it,
to acknowledge it,
to
drag it into the light of day is very important, and because it's the numbness that Dorina mentions. That's the
But you see people tuning away from it and turning away from, they're tuning it out. They're turning away from these things that they perceive as being this just corporate slop.
Yeah.
That's being presented to them. And they're being more discerning. Like I don't have a lack of belief in, I'm impressed by the younger generation who is able to walk away and tune out this stuff and turn it off and are disinterested. We're talking about why aren't people engaging? That word engagement on these things. And all these companies are trying so desperately to figure out, why are people not going to the movies? Why are people not watching TV? Why are ad sales dropping? It's because you destroyed all of these industries and the trust with the public. If you don't respect enough the things that you're making, the public perceives that.
Absolutely.
And they're going to turn to the human experiences because we are still humans at this point.
When we
still crave that connection.
When we did our wrap up for 2023, we talked about the Barbenheimer phenomenon. And something that we really honed in on was the fact that it wasn't just, haha, so funny, different tones, different color palettes. It wasn't, haha, dad movie, mom, daughter movie. It was that people stepped up and said, I'm not going to choose. I'm going to program my double feature. I'm going to go on Letterboxd and have fun with the fact that these things are coming out and neither would budge. And it's cool that neither would budge. And so we're going to celebrate that. And it was entirely organic. And you talked about the TikTok stuff. I am increasingly frustrated all the time by seeing tiny microphones on a junket of people that don't know how to write questions or aren't instructed to, or are thrown out to the wolves, ruining the quality of the conversation. However, at the same time, it's a multiple truths thing because it's an Anytime episode. At the same time, it's undeniable that what you're saying is true, that at the same time, people crave the human element of, John or Jenny with their tiny microphone. At least I know them. And that's a part of it too. And like, I've bought a few movies.
You can only afford the tiny microphone, Alden.
Yes,
we all know that. Sometimes that's all you can get. Also, sometimes you got a tiny backpack or a tiny bag, and you can't bring the heavy professional equipment that would make you sound perfect. And then it's just, how can I get the thing? And none of us want to go listen to ourselves when we were younger. Like, Ken, do you want to listen to some of the things you would say in the overnight radio spot?
No, I have a bag of air checks here that will never see the light of day. Number one, I sound about 7 octaves higher. But also, it just, no, I'm happy with my change now.
I'm pulling stuff from my vault. I'm putting up on my Patreon. Started with Rene Auberjonois interview that I did. Odo from Deep Space Nine. Clayton Endicott III from Benson.
Yeah, I was going to say, you better say Benson.
I'm going to have to mention Benson. Boston, the amazing actor. Robert Altman's film of MASH. But amazing actor, wonderful guy. I had an interview with him in 2004 that never ran. And it was a phone interview. And it was intended because this was, pre-podcast.
Yeah.
Things were intended to be in print. Print being on IGN Film Force or wherever it was at the time. Digital print. But it was supposed to be a traditional read it in text form interview. So I'm not performative in the conversation. He's Rene Auberjonois. He's just naturally entertaining to listen to. But I wanted to make this thing available. And people aren't going to read this thing. So I had to go through, I had to clean up. It was done over the phone. A lot of noise reduction and mixing to try and make this not sound like a tinny, hum-filled conversation. But listening to myself, I'm wholly uncomfortable listening to my not attempt. I'm not trying to be broadcast in it because that's wasn't what it was. I was just asking questions and trying to have a conversation and keep up 20 years ago with a much younger me, less experienced, thought I was more. But
we've been there.
I thought the benefit of having that out, though, was not me. I'm the embarrassing part of that. It was what he had to say about his experiences and the things we talked about that I thought it made it valuable to not let that just lie in, a folder completely unreleased. And he's passed away. He passed away a few years ago. So those conversations can't be had with him again. And the older I get, and Ken, you've had this, we've talked to people that have passed away and it's awkward to think, I had a big, massive interview that I was the guy when I was 20 reaching out to Dom DeLuise, who at that point was largely forgotten by the industry. And like, I'll have a 4-hour conversation with you in depth about everything. Yeah. I'll talk about, you growing up in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn as my grandmother and getting pickle for a nickel at the deli. And
I like it.
That's a fun conversation that no one will ever have again.
Yeah.
Because he's not with us anymore. And for me, it was preserving those things. And I think that I can't look at the naivete or the lack of experience or lack of technical equipment in that and bag on someone. And for me personally, I look at that and go, you're going to get better. Keep doing this. That's what will make you better. I'm glad you exist in this space because you have a perspective I do not have on these things. Because I am so sad and jaded now about so many things. And the bitterness just
but not
is
pickle for a nickel.
Yeah, the aura of bitterness that exists around.
Yeah.
You'll never forget that phrase now that you know it. Trust me, I've held on to it for 20 plus years.
But then the dark side of all of that, and my fear is, will anybody, and the vague anybody, these companies, these people, are they giving them the opportunity to have that kind of growth? Probably not. Or are they just bringing them in to replace the three of us and our friends, and that's paranoia too. I acknowledge that.
Well, again, with age and the sad experiences, we're all going to be replaced, and we're all going to die. And a lot of what these CEOs, tech billionaires, snake oil salesmen don't want to accept is they're not forever.
Yeah.
That all we have is this time. That we are here to do whatever we're doing. And is there stuff I look back on and wish I had spent my time better when I was younger? Sure.
Yeah.
I already have that. I'm 28 and I already have that. Yeah.
Good. It's only going to get more intense.
Let it calcify.
But that's the thing where you look at those and they're in denial about their eventual end. Yeah. And, it's having that self-awareness to go, what is my legacy? What is the thing? Did I do an okay job on this world just being a human being to other human beings? And it is such a sad existence for them that they won't accept that they will be gone. They will be gone one day. They all will be gone. All these people grasping for power, clutching all of this money, they will be gone. And someone made the great acknowledgement of, does anybody talk about Rush Limbaugh nowadays? No. Because what did he leave the world with? He left the world with just a hateful, disposable content that he just, the bile in the airwaves but no one's talking about him. Even the people that lived by his every word don't talk about him or a legacy.
And died by it. Yeah.
And died by it.
Yeah.
What a dumb hill to die on.
And I will say this, I was employed at the same overall company that had Rush's show in the block. You had Limbaugh, Beck, Hannity, and then some local guys all in one run. Heinous stuff. And that guy died, and I don't even think there was an email. I literally think that they moved on.
There might have been one. Hey, guess what? You got the slot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 o'clock's now filled by this guy. As we start to look to round up this conversation, it's been fascinating and it's ongoing. And one of the reasons I think this is ongoing because it is about the core issues of the power inequality, the class inequality, the wage inequality. And we joke, but it's like I was having this conversation. And I'd love to have it here on air with my buddy Matt Key, who's like, look, this AI seems new and changing rapidly and relatively harmless in the sense of how do we stop George Carlin specials. But eventually, a Bezos is going to be able to get some AI that shuts down his body but keeps his brain going, and he never has to sleep, and he will be more elite than us. And there will be this more giant, it seems sci-fi, but we could get there. Maybe not with Bezos, but Bezos Jr. And that's kind of the core issue. So this is an ongoing conversation. But as we turn towards the haircut, the balance is tough. How can this work? And how can we fight it? Is it just acknowledging it now for our generations to see where do you go as we wrap this up?
I think it's the place we're already going to, which is the more human experiences between us and connecting. And it's not going to be, none of us are going to get the big job or the big investment we all thought we were going to be. Yeah. It all is the gig economy of finding where our niches are and finding our communities and hoping we all support each other in those. And, honestly, and believe me, I think about this too, is that, when you see a GoFundMe or you start a GoFundMe, we're all just passing around the limited money we all have.
Yeah, right.
But we're acknowledging in that moment, hey, in this moment, I'm up here, you're down here. I can give you some of mine in the hopes that when I'm down here and you're up here, we find a balance as a society and a community amongst all of us, because
I like that.
No one else is looking out for us. That class isn't, but they're destroying themselves with their delusions.
Both of those are actually getting. Both the mutual aid and also the destruction at the top are beautiful to me. And you're right. I mean, it's like you mentioned, like why are these record concert sales happening for tours like Taylor Swift's Eras Tour? Why is it that smaller film distributors that are still pretty big, but like smaller, can say, hey, by the way, we're doing a limited run of this movie on VHS, and it sells out in a second? Like, because people want permanence. They want the beauty of permanence in things that are like my physical media, but they also want the inverse beauty of impermanence of this is only going to happen here once now.
Is our shared experience.
Yeah, that we'll talk about it, and that's how it exists.
And you have the fallacy of Bezos, who you're not going to live on an AI.
Yeah.
An AI version of you will live on, but you trapped in your meat sack are going to die. It's like the transporter, the thing that people that when they really want to think about the transporter in Star Trek is, no, it's actually destroying you, and a duplicate you is being reconstructed. You don't actually persist through that process.
Yeah, the ship of Theseus.
Jeff, who you think you're going to live forever. No, something that thinks it's Jeff, that is an AI, is going to live forever. You who have this fear right now are going to die. You're going to end. And they don't acknowledge that, and they throw their money at all the wrong things because they don't care about legacy in the way the awful people of centuries past, who at the end, during their lives would go, I got to build a museum. I got to do something that means that people don't remember me as just an asshole.
Just a conqueror.
Yeah.
Some great thoughts there. One great comment from JMB. GoFundMe is health insurance, the most damning indictment of the healthcare state of America. But also, GoFundMe, being healthcare is I view as an innovation and not disruption. They didn't intend it that way, but they innovated a new way for all of us to come together. And I think kind of that final point is important to me. And how do we fight back, or how do we find the balance? It is those connections. If you're able and blessed to have people in your life, Matt Key and I, we're longtime writing partners and friends, 20 plus years now, and we always joke like, 1 month I might need him to get me a lunch, and he's happy to do it because he's in the position. And the next month it might be me in the position to give him a free meal because we're both there together as friends to try to get each other through this. And that's sometimes in the face of this overwhelming feeling of the destruction of a lot of things around us. New things will emerge, maybe, yes, but if we have each other, we have these connections, and if we can still win games on Fortnite together, we might be okay.
We have those conversations. That's our we time.
That is our we time. And speaking of we time, Ken, it's been absolutely wonderful to get this conversation. Probably won't be the last. People really enjoyed your insightful takes in there. We have some links down below of go to your YouTube channel, find you from there. But anything you want to highlight, because, we're still in the system where we need people to buy your books so you can eat today. That's a reality. I'll get you tacos. Where can they find you?
Blue Sky. You can find me, Ken Plume. Whatever the heck comes after all that on Blue Sky. Instagram, Insta Ken Plume. I post fun pictures of figures and things. YouTube channel, Ken Plume on here with Force 5, which Ken, you've been a guest on, and Alden, you'll have to come on sometime where we can talk about your 5 favorite Star Wars collectibles. Art of DuckTales is still available. Go Team Venture, the art making the Venture Brothers is, I guess, out of print. No one's telling me, but it's not available. So you can't find that, but that was a swell thing we did.
It was disrupted.
Yeah, no. There's things out there, and you can go find links to my Patreon where I'm releasing those Vault interviews and a lot of fun stuff. And there's an Amazon wish list too, if you just want to get some dumb fun things that make me feel happy for a moment
and alive. Thank you, Ken, for popping in here. You are definitely Knuff, and we'll catch up with you later.
Oh, so are you.
Thank you.
And you're all done enough.
And you're all
so
enough.
Much.
We're all in this together. All right, fun conversation. Well, I wouldn't say fun, an important, harrowing, and frightening conversation, but I like having these conversations and trying to understand it. It was that moment, Alden, for me of 2 a.m. at the Comedy Store, knowing at some point I'll get home and I can pull up a cab number and maybe figure it out. But what had brought me here was not going to get me back home safe. And it was the moment I was like, I think I need to start paying attention a little more what's going on. So, thank you again to Mr. Plume for having the conversation. I hope your old calcifying soul got even older with that.
It did, but I oddly inspired. Both mortified and inspired, because I think at the end of the day, we, along with Ken Plume, along with Dorina, along with so many people that are yes, you did all right, Ken.
You did great. You did great.
We are programmed by the stuff that inspires us to know that to have a little bit of that rebel spirit. And so it's like, to name it is to claim it, right? Like with any of these problems. And so shining a light on it, not turning away, that's all we can do sometimes. And there's a comfort in that.
And understand it. It complicated. I keep saying, hey, I pay for the use of Spotify because I do enjoy the service, but it's also affecting artists I love, including myself. It's a complicated world. We're just trying to find our way. Find a friend and get him tacos. We have a little bit of time left here. I do have a live Force Center coming 2 p.m. Pacific time. If you're a Star Wars fan, slide over to the Force Center YouTube channel. Joseph, Jen, and I are going to go live in a bit. But Alden, we do have to get to some of our segments here. And it's the entertainment segment here. And what do you got, buddy? Where are we going? I should say.
I wrote them in a certain order because, we just want to, there's a couple things that are going to take a few minutes. I will say very quickly, in Alden news, Dua Lipa has begun promo for the second single off of her new album. We don't know the name of the album yet. It's the third Dua Lipa album. The song's called Training Season. I heard about 20 seconds of it. Changed my life. There is no, people, I think it's the internet. So people are like, they simplify sometimes the fandom that a guy can have for like a woman in the arts. And it's like, Is she, of course, like just like unbelievably like goddess level attractive? Yes, but I want everyone to know that like when I bring her up, I'm not thinking about her in that way. I truly believe.
I'm glad you brought this up because this is a conversation I wanted to have offline with you, and but we're having it online, and it is a little about, I'll say your generation, you just in terms of years, not necessarily the generations that are in the media discussions. You strike a great balance, or at least attempt to, between thirst and respect for an artist like Dua Lipa, because there's a reality about what you see for you, and there's a reality in what you wanted, and I think it's important to strike that. It is part of the new paradigm for discussing this stuff. In the past, the conversation would have stopped at the door of, "Hey, she's hot." And that might be a fact to you, but I love and respect that you do push past it, but acknowledge the truth of part of the situation. I'll give you props for that.
It's not hard to do. I'm not going to be like, I'm so brave, but it is something that I attempt to do because we're public facing internet people. I legitimately believe this. It would be irresponsible for either of us to come onto this show and be like, Haley Williams is hot. That's implied. Haley Williams is all of these things. Dua Lipa is hot is implied. The woman was a model before she was a singer, but like it's her stances, it's her podcast, it's her list of book recommendations, it's her work for charitable organizations, it's the throwbacks to disco. It's like
it's all of that. It's especially the throwbacks to disco. Yeah. I'm going to ask you this though, because I don't follow her that closely. Where is she putting her book recommendations? Just Twitter, X? Where she's putting them?
I will send you a link. She has it's both a podcast and what she calls a global concierge service called Service 95. And if you put your name into the Service 95 list, you'll be like, here's 20 restaurants, or are you in this city? Here's where I would go. Here's my interview with this author. Here's my interview. She interviewed Tim Apple. I know that's not his name, everyone. She interviewed Tim Apple on her show, and to his face held up her iPhone and said, can you promise me that the microchips in here do not go back to child labor? Like, she's done. She's grilled people. She's plugged in.
Love this woman. Love it. I respect. That's funny you brought that up. All right, I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, please. Another woman who is just divine, seraphim level beautiful, but I don't want to focus on that, is Daisy Ridley. Daisy Ridley says the story she's been told for the upcoming Rey Skywalker film is, quote, cool as shit. And that if it wasn't amazing, she would have told Lucasfilm, call me in 5 years. Yeah. I love the just glowing, hilarious endorsements that she is giving well before they even roll a picture on this Star Wars installment. I can't call it episode 10, even though we'll see. It's definitely exciting to have her back out there. Yeah. And then two slightly bigger stories. Jon Stewart returning to the Daily Show Mondays only, also executive producing through the election is what they have said so far. So does that mean inauguration day? Does it mean the day after? We don't know, but
potentially to the next insurrection if Trump loses and doesn't accept it. Yeah, this is great. I love that Jon left when he did and left on his own terms when he did, and I love that he has the ability to say, hey, this works for me now, and things change. I know the situation at Apple with The Problem, which is a show I enjoyed, and a podcast I enjoyed. I know that kind of crumbled fast. So I love it. I love it. As someone who's retired from stand-up comedy, someone who's retired from stand-up comedy like several times and come back, I think it's fair to let some people come back to things.
Yeah, I think a return is valuable, especially when someone leaves on their own terms, because life is different. His family is grown. His children are adults now. Like the world is different. He's gone and he's directed and worked on other projects. He's got his stuff with his animal activism, and so it's like life goes on, and you end up returning to a thing and saying, I have things to say now as an older guy that I didn't have to say as a younger guy, which I think is valuable. And also the reality of the situation of the very public back and forth that turned into a fumble with Roy Wood Jr., who was like the presumptive favorite. They made him audition a bunch of times and then ghosted him and didn't have a decision. That sucks. And so maybe this is Stewart saying, let's not have that happen again. I'll help you get us to the third phase or fourth phase. I always forget about the pre-Stewart days. But
yeah. Well, Lori Kilmartin had a great joke on Twitter. Who's a great comic. You all should follow her. She tweeted out, "Yeah, no one's talking about how Kilbourne's coming back for Tuesdays and Wednesdays," which changed that show. It changed. I like it. I don't want to spend too much time. We got a bigger conversation to have here, but I like it. It's sports talk, but I like it sometimes. A team goes through a period where they're upended. There's a little bit of upsets going on in the organization or the clubhouse, and they bring back a veteran coach who might have been retired, who's not there for the long term, just to calm things down and right the ship as they build towards the future. I think that's what Biden also promised he was doing in 2020. So we'll see. It just, I guess that's extended right now. But I like that. I like that for the show and for Jon Stewart, because I do think it became a very important show, an influential show. A lot of people are wondering what this will help in terms of influence this coming year.
Absolutely, and we will continue to cover it, and maybe, I don't know, we'll try to have someone Daily Show related on. I'm not. Maybe we have a Daily Show expert. Then
Ben Wellington says, "What? Kilbourne's coming back? No, he's not.
No.
That was the point of Kilmartin's joke, is we don't want him back."
I hope that CBS and Comedy Central have enough of a relationship. I don't know who owns Comedy Central, that we can maybe see a return of classic Colbert for just one episode.
It's probably all filters back to Goldman Sachs anyway, so we'll see.
And then, are you familiar with a company called the WWE?
Oh yes, it's a sports entertainment brand that puts on live shows and television programs.
Yes, at one point they had another W and an F. They got rid of one of those. They got rid of the other thing. It was a whole thing. The WWE, a company close to both of our hearts in as much as we've grown up, on this, and you've worked in that industry. And they had 3 massive news stories this week, which is a lot for them, honestly. The Rock, let's start with him. Positive news. The Rock comes home. He's always had a foot in. He's always been friendly with home, but it's always been part-time stints ever since he became Dwayne Johnson, the movie star. He's had a couple Mania matches here and there, different run-ins, returns. He officially is now back in the WWE as a member of the board for TKO, which is the group under Endeavor parent company, then TKO, one hand WWE, one hand UFC. He's on the board for that now. So The Rock is officially there, which means the most electrifying man in sports entertainment's on the board. The Game is the CEO, the CCO, and the Heartbreak Kid is the vice president of development. It's a very weird time.
You're telling me the next generation, new generation stars have won. I skip over the Attitude Era and go straight to that.
It's true. When will Bret Hart become CEO and Foley become CFO? I don't know.
But. Foley's going to be. He'll handle the accounting. You're right. Fascinating. There's more to it, of course. So there's more news. I'll let you finish that there.
Oh yeah. So and I don't know if it was part of his deal or business, payment, or if it was the handshake part of it, but he also now has full ownership of the name The Rock. Which he did not have previously. He owns it outright, which I look forward to his tequila being re-released as Rock Tequila. That'll be exciting.
There you go.
Other news that happened in the same morning. 31 years of Monday Night Raw, 52 weeks a year on television. No off-season in professional wrestling. It has been a consistent staple, mostly on USA, TNN for a little bit, Spike for a little bit, but mostly Characters Welcome. They are leaving TV, at least in a traditional sense. Right. 2025 will begin a 10-year, $5 billion deal with Netflix. Mondays, Netflix, 3 hours. It's a huge game changer.
This is innovation versus disruption. It's all the things we're talking about. I was just having a conversation with someone yesterday over lunch about this. This is a potential giant game changer. As it moves away from traditional TV. I've been saying, I got YouTube TV this late in the football season, and I've been enjoying just having TV on again. Like I could just tune in and what game shows playing. It was a weird kind of nostalgia trip, but also a reminder of how things used to work and work well. So I'm curious about this one, but I myself have, as a lifelong wrestling fan, someone who was in and around the business a few times over the last couple of decades, I haven't watched Raw in a while because I haven't had the ability. I've watched it on Twitter in the sense of highlights
Right.
and clips and Instagram stories. That's how I get my wrestling news. And again, there's too much wrestling to keep up on every week, I would say, but not just in the Fed but like across the board, AEW, all of them, which I'm glad they exist. So this is one of the things that immediately my first thought is, oh, I might watch it again. So
Yeah.
we'll see how much it becomes destruction. We'll see how much of it's innovation. It is part of it's a big move forward. And hey, look, the WWE Network. I remember thinking, what the hell are they doing? An app I have to $9.99 a month. I was there that first day when it didn't work, the actual app, but and to see from that to this, it's been an interesting, fascinating, even at times scary journey.
Yeah, it feels weird in an exciting way. I mean, who will it bring back? Who will it show wrestling to for the first time? I mean, these are interesting things. A kid that's watching the next Pokemon thing, the new Pokemon claymation series, might see, oh, I kind of know who John Cena is. Like, oh, and it's on right now? Well, this is weird. This is new.
That's fascinating. They're just watching Pokemon. Next thing they're like, Mom, who's Rhea Ripley?
Yeah, which, I mean, I can talk about her for hours, but yeah, it's really weird. It's interesting, and it makes it so that SmackDown, long called the B show and long believed internally to be the B show, is now the biggest one on television. Just odd, and it also enables AEW to say, we're the wrestling show that you don't have to pay for a service to watch, at least right now.
Yeah, that's part. Well, yeah. Pay for in terms of not pay an additional fee, but if you have YouTube TV's not yet free, I'll say that. But I know that's not what you meant. But all that pales in comparison, Alden, to our final discussion point of the day of vileness and evil.
Yeah. So we don't have a graphic or a sounder for this, and I don't even know what it would be like if we did. But I just want to throw up a content warning from us to everybody watching and listening. From this point on, crimes of a violent and sexual nature are going to be touched on. It is an ongoing thing. It was quiet in the 2022 time period, and then 2023 kind of went away by design, I'm sure. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, who's been the head of WWE since he took it from his father decades ago, bought it from his father. They have now had this allegation situation going on for a few years, where it was unveiled when these sales talks were happening that there were allegations against him, that hush money was paid. Right. Parts of the story are facts, and part of it is new. The facts are hush money was paid out. This was uncovered in the Nick Khan takeover of the company, and he was, silencing women, and there were arrangements made. And he retired in 2022, and he tried to come back, and he was stopped by Nick Khan, his daughter Stephanie McMahon, and his son-in-law Paul Levesque, better known as Triple H. Now, 2023 goes around, and it's kind of like, oh, old man's back. Everyone kind of ignored it, which is a problem, and it's an all entertainment industry problem. And then now it has been, apparently the hush money payment was breached. There's a huge 60-something page filing in Connecticut lawsuit, not just for assaults and things that we had already kind of known, but also trafficking. WWE and UFC and NFL at one time. Star Brock Lesnar is now involved. John Laurinaitis, who was SVP talent, involved. It's a mess. And I would warn anybody before going in that we've had guys like this sort of get brought down in public, your Weinsteins and things like that. These are uniquely gross, uniquely heinous, uniquely creatively evil things that were done.
Well said. And it's all ongoing and just hitting the world, so to speak. And encourage you, if you can, look through it all. And I don't know. I guess I'll throw out the, hey, it's ongoing and there's some allegations. I'll throw that allegation word in just because. But beyond all that,
procedurally, it is important to say. Yeah,
great. I like that word, procedurally. But I'm to discuss it and take it as a believe this victim situation here, and I'm just sadly curious to see what this does to a lot of folks. and the dividing line. The last few years has created these dividing lines that just aren't about what do you like on your pizza and what are your views on tax policies. The differences, the divide really strikes moral lines. And I actually like that. It's kind of that conversation you and I had last week about when politics changes relationships. I know a lot of folks who might struggle with hearing this kind of stuff, just because they struggled with even some of the stuff with Hulk Hogan about stuff he did in his past, and
Right.
and change your legacy. Vince, we're talking about business deals that would not be possible if Vince didn't, buy the company from his father, strong arm it, if you will, disrupt the business, but in many ways he innovated the business. But I bet he also likes that disruption word as well. But he destroyed parts of the business and built up his own. But we're here having this conversation because those decisions he made. I think there's something to say about that. But the challenge is leaving all that behind to take these people off those pedestals by things they actually did do and dealing with who they actually are and who they still are. Because I'm all up for if someone does this and changes, but this isn't that conversation. This was vile, but also, Alden, for me, and not someone with no knowledge of it, it was like, yeah, this makes sense for this business. I've been kind of waiting for this business to get the rake over it, to see and peel back and see what's actually been going on in a lot of the shadows of this industry. And that's my view on it, is can you leave the praise for anyone who helped change your life as a fan? Can you leave it behind to deal with the realities that are right here in front of you?
Yeah, I mean, this is an understatement in this case, but people are never one thing. You can be, it's not a binary, brilliant and decent, or creative and evil. And like, these are not things that don't coexist in many people. I brought up Harvey Weinstein because it is comparable in terms of amount of crimes and power within their sphere.
Yeah,
Harvey Weinstein
and lives. Sorry, cut you out. Lives and careers stalled because of it.
Absolutely,
and hurt and destroyed.
When you look at that creative resume, will anybody ever deny one of the greatest runs of any producer ever? Probably not. I mean, like he got some of your favorite. He got Robin Williams to that Oscar. As one of hundreds of accomplishments. But similarly with Vince, it's like, did he contribute and create a lot of the heroes of our childhoods and the moments that made us laugh and cry and like all these things? Yes, but that is the public facing character of Mr. McMahon. This is Vincent K. McMahon, whose daughter has disappeared from the public life. You would assume because of shame, whose son-in-law literally almost died for this job with a heart problem and everything, and is now trying to take it in a new direction and give more time to women. And they're trying to make, you could tell there are voices trying to make progress.
There are.
And
I had some conversations even just yesterday about some of the changes going on behind the scenes that are good, that are positive.
And it's hanging. I mean, and even on the other side, the people that he didn't directly influence, but his environment helped create, where, Tony Khan and AEW has talked about like the safety that we are trying to create in our locker room and how we pay attention to the safety level and like all this stuff. And whatever it is, it just gets to the point where humanity is important. I mean, Lance Storm, who's a fan favorite and has been around, and Lance was saying like, they gotta go. They gotta go. And you need to cut the fish's head off. And yes, we all know, like, people that pay attention, Vince is executive chairman. He had a ceremonial position at best at this point. I would argue a little bit of conspiracy brain. I think because we knew when it happened in 22, we knew that they tried to get him out in 23. I think Endeavor Group, personally, this is conjecture, sat back and said, let the old man get us our TV. Let the old man close Netflix, and then we'll kill him. Because this comes out on Wall Street Journal. This doesn't come out in the sheets. So it's like, I do think that everyone involved is like, it's time to destroy the old man. And that's our WrestleMania main event. We're going to have WrestleMania and we're going to destroy him now. And you know what? Maybe they should. And it's because it's vile. Like, I sent it to people that weren't wrestling fans that know that I like it. And they were like, my jaw's on the floor reading this suit.
Yeah, and that goes for others involved and who might have, and the question of who know, the question of who knew and what that's a longer conversation to have, because that can, I don't know, it's longer. I think of the Weinstein. It's like shared secrets or that I think there's more nuance to that than people want to admit. But someone like Brock, who was part of it, who benefited, who took part, that's that thing of fish head being cut off, gotta go as well. And we'll see. It was it changes everything, right? Not for me, but it is a legacy completely wiped out. Hopefully, if this all comes to pass and all those things. So, anyways, we want to discuss it because we are lifelong wrestling fans, and I've been in it, and I've been in those locker rooms, and it's always had a little bit of that carny stink on it, and sometimes you got folks like McMahon who rise and then insulate themselves with their own power. And this is the horrendous stuff that does happen. It goes to even the conversations we had earlier. It's about power, unlimited power. It is about inequalities in positions and classes and wages and money. It's all rolled into one. If only there was a space saga that dealt with these general themes that continue to dominate our life.
Yeah, it's too bad Star Wars is just about Star Wars now. Anyway, I will be talking about this more. I mean, this Saturday begins, or tomorrow actually, if you're watching this
tomorrow,
begins what we call in the wrestling world the road to WrestleMania. There's going to be a press conference after. I have no doubt in my mind they will be the very generic, I can't comment on an ongoing investigation type responses from Hunter, which I don't blame him for using that. He has a lot of responsibility, and he should say that at this point. I mean, that's what you do in this business. You're not going to, because this is a woman's life, and then she speaks for many. So
yeah, I'm sure indeed. Will points out a truth. Will McLean, Lesnar wasn't official named. It said former UFC heavyweight champion. Brock is the only person fit the description. Yes. We
that's when you end up
we'll
in
make
that
sure that
legally safe. Yeah,
you're right. I take it all back. But yes, no, thank you, Will, for that too. All right, we got to start rolling out of here, but we do have Alden. We have one question I want to get to. I want to thank you to Drina and Ken Bloom for super chats, but also this question came in our Q&A super chat segment. Jared the Dark Jedi demanding Alden tell the class about that time he got ramen. What is that about?
Okay, so it was because earlier I mentioned my mother and her reaction to Saltburn, and Jared loves this story. So a little behind the curtain. For a little while, whatever, blah, 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 my life had changed or whatever. And so moved in again with my parents, with my mother. And we, one time I was hanging out with the Du Bois on a post call. You know how we all hang out in these streams, even if it's not on air. And I was, we will say, under the influence. I indulged in the devil's lettuce. Gotcha. And so I was a little bit stoned, right? And so then I said, well, I'm going to get ramen noodles because of course I am, because what else would you do? And I decided to get up and get those ramen noodles. As I am leaving my side of the house, I see that the people I live with, my mother, my stepfather, they are watching the final episode of Breaking Bad, a show that I've seen front to back 2 or 3 times. Okay. I know it very well, and its spinoff. I know what happens in the show, but I was blasted up here, and I saw what scene they were on, and I think there were about 40 minutes left in the finale, and I stood. I didn't sit down. I stood like a ghost behind the couch and watched the entire. Mind you, I've got friends on this call, and I watched the whole finale of Breaking Bad. So then I go and make my ramen noodles, and I come back, and they're like, "Where the hell have you been?
Where'd you go?"
And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And you're like, "You were gone for like an hour." I was like, "Oh, I went to get my ramen noodles, and I had to watch the last episode of Breaking Bad." Again, something that I've seen, many times. So that's one of Jared's favorite stories, favorite dumb things that I've done.
Well, I'm glad you stayed on this show long enough to stick around. And maybe you get to enjoy some ramen. Wonderful. Thank you, Jared, for prompting that question, but also the super chat to help keep the show alive. Do you like content continuing? Yes. Thank you for the support. All right, we're almost out of here. We got our Pop Rockin' Word of Wisdom sponsored by my show, Pop Rockin' Radio on Mixcloud, and also today by Dorina's show at DJ Bruja Radio on Mixcloud as well. Check it out. Go to Mixcloud.com and search as we try to innovate, not disrupt the music and radio business. But Alden, this week's Pop Rockin' Word of Wisdom is yours. What do we got?
we are going to my actual favorite band, who I have not picked yet.
Wow.
My Chemical Romance is my favorite band. I'm one of those people that can confidently give
Love it.
a single answer. This is from their song Disenchanted off of my all-time favorite album, The Black Parade, from the halcyon days of 2006.
Oh, wow.
I wish we could go back. And the lyrics are, I spent my high school career spit on and shoved to agree so I could watch all my heroes sell a car on TV. Bring out the old guillotine, we'll show them what we all mean. If I'm so wrong, so wrong, so wrong, how can you listen all night long, night long, night long? Now, will it matter long after I'm gone because you never learn a goddamn thing? You're just a sad song with nothing to say about a lifelong wait for a hospital stay. And if you think that I'm wrong, this never meant nothing to you. So go away, just go, run away. But where did you run to and where did you hide? Go find another way, price you pay.
Love it. Love it. Also, this episode is brought to you by Ford. Get the new Ford F-150.
I leave you all with that song because it's about reflection. It's about looking back. It's about wondering am I a sellout? And if I am a sellout, why do you all care? If I sold out, but you flock anyway, what does that mean for me? Or do you even get to decide if I'm a sellout? Who gets to pick that label for me? You could tell I was in a contemplative place picking this and the Bruce Wayne Ben Affleck. So that's where we're at.
You did a great job. Thank you all for watching. Links to support are down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the Anytime in Alden YouTube channel. This is also rebroadcast on that channel as we slowly build out that while I still broadcast here. Thank you again to our guest, Ken Plume. Check out his work. He's really one of the best interviews out there. You want long-form interviewing done right. Ken's been doing it for 20 plus years because we old. The two Kens are old, but Alden, you're right there with us. We're out of here today. We'll be back next week. Thank you all. Bye-bye.